Tonight's broadcast is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. Get ready to smile.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Hey everybody, and welcome in. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Really do appreciate it. We had an off day, so we wanted to go ahead and jump on and have a live broadcast and talk a little bit of Braves baseball with you. Also, again, thank you for being here tonight. For those of you watching on the live broadcast, thank you for being here. For those of you watching it on the replay, we thank you just the same. If you're new here, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date on everything going on here at On Deck and, of course, with your Atlanta Braves. Tonight, we're, of course, going to recap the series with the Cubs. We're going to preview the series with the Padres. We're going to talk about all the trade ideas for starting pitchers that are starting to unfold. And we're also going to talk a little bit about former Atlanta Braves third base coach Ron Washington as he now manages the Los Angeles Angels. And, of course, we're going to open it up to comments with you later on. But let's go ahead and kick it off with a look at the Cubs series. Game one, a low-scoring affair. The Braves were able to win it 2-0. Ronaldo Lopez looked really good. He's continuing just positive start after positive start. Even when, his start hasn't, led to a win, he has still been able to be successful. And in game one against the Cubs, he had 5 scoreless innings, and of course the bullpen took over. Ray Kerr has looked really good. We're going to talk about him some more later. But Dylan Lee and AJ Minter and, of course, Ray Kerr were able to hold it down. And then we saw a little bit out of the offense. We saw Ronald Acuña come to life. He had an RBI. And then one other guy who I really wanted to focus on is Zach Short, who has had a great debut in this short stretch that he's been with Atlanta. Of course, we traded cash to Boston for Zach Short. He's got a .400 batting average since arriving in Atlanta. He's got 14 plate appearances, small sample size, but Chipper Jones called him a spark plug, and he has been just that. He's had a mixture of a good defense, good hitting, and good speed. And, of course, while Austin Riley has been out, he's been able to fill that need at third base. And, hopefully he can maybe hang around and prove himself to be valuable off the bench once Riley comes back. But no, he's been a really good piece to have, especially when you consider the lack of depth that the Braves have had in the infield thus far. In the past couple of years, it's nice to know that we have him if needed, and nice to know that he's been able to get off to a hot start in Atlanta. Going into game two, the offense really kind of took a stride up. The Braves, of course, won 7-0 off the back of Chris Sale, who had 7 scoreless innings. He had 9 strikeouts. Aaron Bummer and Jackson Stevens were able to keep it scoreless into the 9th. But yeah, the offense really took control. We saw Matt Olson go yard. That was a positive trend. We saw a lot happen in that game that leads me to believe that we're really going to see the offense come to life. And there's more than just that. You have Austin Riley. Of course, he is sidelined. I think he'll come back on fire. Sean Murphy is coming back soon. He's starting a rehab stint here very soon. So I know I've been saying he's a couple of weeks away. Now we really have a timetable. I think a couple of rehab stints, in the minors, and he'll be back, which is nice to know. That's going to, of course, boost not only our offense, but I would assume boost our pitching staff as well. But nice to know that he's on the mend and will be back soon. And nice to know he'll be playing sooner rather than later. Game 3, of course, we were looking for the sweep, as we always are in a Game 3 situation. Did not go the Braves' way. It was a rough night. Charlie Morton only threw 3 innings pitched. And really, Chipper said it in the broadcast multiple times that you had to give credit to the Cubs' offense because they were able to fight away good pitching. Charlie Morton, I don't think, pitched bad. It wasn't like he was, missing by that much, but he just did not have that crisp curveball. Of course, we saw a guy, we saw the back foot curveball literally be a back foot curveball a couple of times, and he just wasn't there. It's not indicative of what we've seen out of Morton throughout his career, but it's really not indicative of what we've seen this year. I mean, Charlie has been one of the guys similar to Chris Sale who we've been able to count on every start. So, he's going to have a bad one here and there. Yesterday was his bad one. And, look, I'd rather that be the case in May than be the case in September or October. So for me, it is what it is. What I will say about the game, outside of the lack of offense, Ray Kerr, and we mentioned him earlier, he pitched back in game 1. Ray Kerr, we talked about in the offseason when the Braves acquired him. We talked about him being kind of a bit of a project arm. He had high velocity, but he didn't have a ton of command. But man, oh man, has he been good for the Braves. He pitched 3 innings last night. He had 1 earned run, but of course it was a mop-up role against the Cubs. But I think he's a guy who, look, I mean, you need guys to cover innings. He was able to do that. Now the Braves bullpen can go even further into the well if needed come the first game against the Padres. But all in all, Game 3, rough night. You got to flush it and move on to the series with the Padres, and we're going to talk about that Padres series when we come back.
Now at Glynn Smith GMC in Opelika, own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $12,500 off. Roomy and comfortable, the compact SUV GMC Terrain is up to $7,750 off. And GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7 are now discounted up to $7,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall at Glynn Smith GMC in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Make your way to Glynn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox, discounted up to $6,500 off. Chevy's full-size pickup truck, the powerful Chevy Silverado, is up to $12,000 off. And big Chevy Silverado 2500 HDs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall. Make your way to Glynn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Welcome back in, guys. Again, thank you for being here tonight, watching live. We certainly do appreciate it. And of course, if you would do us a favor, just make sure to like the video. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications so that you know when we are live, when we drop new content, all that good stuff. And of course, we're happy to be with you here on a Thursday night, an off night for the Braves. But we're only, 24 hours-ish away from the Braves starting a brand new series with the San Diego Padres. We will see Max Fried take the mound. He will be at home, of course, against Matt Waldron. Max Fried will be taking on the team who, of course, it's in his backyard, right, out there in San Diego. Yu Darvish will be taking on Bryce Elder in Game 2. The Padres have not named a starter for Game 3, but we do know for the Braves it will be Ronaldo Lopez looking to just continue what he's been able to do. For Bryce Elder, he's looking for really a bounce-back start. The Braves are only going to go so long given chances, and for me, I think you got to see Elder pitch very well. On paper, Yu Darvish certainly has the advantage. He's a veteran. He has a history of just taking care of business when it comes to the Braves. But I think that, all in all, if the Braves offense can come to life a little more than what they've done, then I think you can see a win there. I think you can certainly see a win in the series. I think Game 1, you got to give the edge to Max Fried. Obviously, Game 2, you give the edge to Yu Darvish. Game 3 is a toss-up. We know Ronaldo Lopez pitching. I don't know who's pitching for the Padres just yet. They've not named a starter. There is no probable starter yet. So time will tell on that. But for me, Ronaldo Lopez gives me a lot of confidence. And I think you can see a series win here for sure. But if not, we'll address that when the time comes. Just want to remind you, we will do a Sunday Sunday night live stream. No time yet on, again, Sunday, either before Game 3 or following Game 3. It is a 7:10 start time, so that would push our start time for a live stream back pretty late. So I would imagine we're going to be somewhere around 3 or 4 o'clock on the live stream. Plan for 3, but I will announce it on the community page, so make sure you're aware there. Make sure you're keeping up with it. But of course, if you just subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications, you'll get notified the moment we go live. So just make sure you're keeping up on all those things. And again, really do appreciate all you tuning in tonight. Really helps us out, and the more viewers we get, the better we do. So really do appreciate you tuning in. But again, Matt Waldron, Max Fried tomorrow night, Yu Darvish versus Bryce Elder in Game 2. And Game 3, we know for the Braves it will be Ronaldo Lopez taking the mound. And when I look at these two teams, for me, I think you see two teams with untapped potential. We all know about the Padres. We all know what they can do on any given day. But so far this year, they've just not really lived up to the payroll. And what I mean by that, they are, in second place, but a distant second place. They're 7.5 games out behind the Dodgers. You know that they're trying to turn that around. You know they're trying to get within striking distance of the lead in the NL West. For the Braves, they do find themselves 3 games back of the Philadelphia Phillies, which is not where we want to be. Of course, you always want to be leading the division, but they are again in striking distance, I think, with the addition of Sean Murphy, getting Austin Riley back, maybe a couple, trade deadline shenanigans. I think the Braves are going to be right back there. They're certainly, in my opinion, going to make the postseason. When you look, even if it's a wild card draw, the Braves are, have one of the best records in baseball. They have one of the best win percentages in baseball. With that, I don't see a reality where everyone is healthy and the Braves don't make the postseason. I would just be very surprised. That said, they're just one of the best teams in baseball. It's undeniable, really. That said, with a series between the Braves and the Padres, 2 teams with elite talent, it can go either way. That said, we again will see Max Fried tomorrow night. That gives me all the confidence in the world. A little shaky with Bryce Elder. I think the offense is going to have to help him there. And then Game 3, Ronaldo Lopez on the mound against X. Of course, we'll find out how things go then. A reminder, get your comments in. We will read as many of those later on in the show. We have a couple segments before that. The next one, though, I'm really excited about. We are going to preview the trade deadline. Of course, the trade deadline coming up on July 30th. We're going to give you kind of an update. We showed you a few weeks ago where the trade options stood based on the teams that were, not playing well, not doing well, not within striking distance. We got a few new ones, and I'm excited to tell you about that, of course, when we come back. Thank you for watching, guys.
Now at GLYNN Smith GMC in Opelika, own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $12,500 off. Roomy and comfortable, the compact SUV GMC Terrain is up to $7,750 off. And GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7 are now discounted up to $7,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall at GLYNN Smith GMC in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Make your way to GLYNN Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox, discounted up to $6,500 off. Chevy's full-size pickup truck, the powerful Chevy Silverado, is up to $12,000 off. And big Chevy Silverado 2500 HDs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall. Make your way to GLYNN Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
And welcome back, guys. Again, thank you for being here tonight. Really do appreciate it. A reminder, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and of course, hit the bell for notifications so that you get notified every time we go live. Now, when I said this earlier in the year, I meant it kind of as a joke when I brought you the trade possibilities because there were very few, if any. I was serious about a couple of them, but the reality is no team was really out there trying to trade other than the Miami Marlins. And I don't know about you, but there's not really an arm that I see fit in Miami. That said, the trade deadline is eventually coming up, July 30th of this year, and I think the Braves are certainly going to be active. There are certainly areas to improve. You could argue the bullpen, but my target focus is the starting rotation, the 5th spot specifically. I think the Braves rotation is certainly good enough to make it to the playoffs. I think it's certainly good enough to even make it to a championship series, but a deep playoff run, especially if you're a wild card team, I think you need 5 solid arms out of that starting rotation. Right now, I don't think the Braves have it. Now, you could argue they could go to their internal options other than Bryce Elder. You have A.J. Smith-Shawver. You have Dylan Dodd. You have guys, Darius Vines. I mean, we could keep going. But my point is, to me, you need a guy who's proven. No one could have expected the loss of Spencer Strider. And I think we're all still a little bit, hopeful of, maybe we can circumvent that. But I think we're also always going to think, man, what could have been? What this team could have been had we had our ace in Spencer Strider. That said, no time for tears. We have to move on, and we have to find a 5th guy. And again, Bryce Elder, I think his next appearance against the Padres very well may be the determining factor as to how long he's going to stay up. Because to me, the Braves have to explore their internal options to make a decision on whether or not they're going to trade. Now, I'm going into this segment with the assumption that the Braves are going to trade. So with that said, here's what I have in mind. Now, let's get to the right window, shall we? Here's what I have in mind. This is your seller list on the left, your on the verge list on the right. So what I mean by this, anytime you talk about a trade deadline, the first thing you do is you narrow it down. And that's kind of what I've done here. So on the left, these are the teams that I think are certainly going to be selling at the deadline. The ones on the right, although some of you may think they are already sellers, I don't necessarily think they are. And there's multiple reasons for that. It could be that they're a team like the Astros who have already said that they're not going to trade, they're not going to be a seller. It could be the fact that they're just not quite there yet. The A's, for example, if I was a betting man and you asked me yes or no, will they sell at the deadline, I would tell you yes. But they're only 5.5 games out. They're not doing bad, even though culturally speaking, we all kind of assume the A's will be seller. The Cardinals, 8 games back, not doing good, but I don't think they're quite there yet as an organization to become a seller. Could they be? Sure. Do I think they'll be? Probably. But they're just not quite there. Blue Jays are in that same boat. And if those teams could possibly become sellers by the July 30 deadline, things are going to get very interesting. Because right now, I think you have the White Sox, the Marlins, the Rockies, the Angels, and the Nationals to really look at and say, okay, without a doubt, these teams are probably going to be sellers, or at least should be sellers at the deadline. The White Sox, one of the worst teams in baseball, 13 games back. The Rockies right there with them, 13 games back. The Marlins have been putrid so far this year. They've been just pretty awful. The Angels just have not been able to find it. I hate to say it for Ron Washington, but they've just not been there. The Nationals are again in the same boat. They're rebuilding. They're 10 games back. So what we've done is we've given you any pitchers of substance, right? I'm not going to waste your time with guys who've barely started or guys that have barely seen the mound. I'm going to try to give you some guys who make sense as starters. And the other thing is I wanted to give you guys that would make sense for the Braves to bring in, right? Like I would understand if they brought in a veteran like Jose Soriano, right, from the Angels, who has a 3.72 ERA. The highlighted ones are the ones I really want you to focus on because they have the right mixture of good ERA and free agency soon, right? So the free agency soon, it could be anywhere from 2025 to 2027. I don't think the Braves are going to trade anything worth getting anything better than that length of time. So you can pick and choose what you want here. I've probably highlighted someone who you personally like. A lot of you guys have liked Sonny Gray. I almost wanted to put them in the seller category. I just can't yet. But I certainly think that, the Cardinals are on their way. And look, just because a team is over here in the on the verge category does not mean that they will be sellers. It could go either way. That's what on the verge is representing there. And really, I think more teams could fall into that middle category of having to decide the longer this goes on. Now, again, because these teams are on the verge, if the Blue Jays were to go to a 10-game win streak, this all goes away, for example, right? If the Astros were to somehow jump up in front, this could go a different way. But so far, this is kind of where things are falling. And again, I think things could certainly change, but this is how I think things are falling right now. Your seller list, those are the teams that I, for sure, if they're not sellers, then they're making a mistake. The White Sox are certainly going to be a seller. That Eric Fetty name, that is the first one that I really jumped on saying, if the Braves did this, I would understand it. Now, when I said that, his ERA was north of 3. I think it was like a 3.2 ERA. It's gotten better. So he's improved the chances to me for the Braves to be attracted to it because you'd have him for the rest of this year and next. The White Sox, I think, would do this deal for, a couple of prospects, nothing too big. Plus the Braves have already traded with the White Sox before this year, so it's just something to think about. So for me, I think Eric Fetty makes a lot of sense. For the Rockies, you have Cal Quantrill, you have Austin Gomber there highlighted. Both of those guys, free agents in the same year. So again, you'd have them, if you made the trade, you'd have them for the remainder of this year and also the following season as well. Those guys to me make sense. Their ERAs are solid enough, especially in Colorado. The 2026, I just think it fits. Again, it's not a perfect system. It's just a way to narrow down. And it may be none of these guys. That's something else to consider. It may be a guy who the Braves see something in that we're not contemplating, that just they like. They've had their eye on him for a while, and it catches us all by surprise. But this is our best way to narrow it down. The Angels have a guy who I'm pretty interested in, Tyler Anderson. I think he's going to move come the deadline. The Angels are not going to be competitive for a few years. I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to be around in the playoff, contention for quite a while. Not until Ron Washington gets his brand of baseball put in there, and that could be some years away. Tyler Anderson has a sub-3 ERA. He's a free agent 2026. I put him in the same category as the Eric Fetty. This is a guy who the Braves should look at. Again, not a guy that I'm saying this is the trade that's going to happen, but it's a guy that the Braves should at least consider. The Nationals, Trevor Williams. Trevor Williams intrigues me a lot too because he's got a sub-2 ERA and he's a free agent at the end of the year. And the Nationals, I think at this point, 10 games back, they're going to be a seller. So Trevor Williams with a sub-2 ERA, he's going to get a lot of attraction, right? He's going to get teams that are all over him for a trade, probably teams with more prospects to give away than Atlanta has. But it could be a trade that if the Braves were to go on it early, like the Marlins and the Padres did a few weeks ago with Luis Arias, it could be something that they land before anyone else, and it may benefit them. I don't know. They may want to see more out of him. But Trevor Williams has given himself a great case to get out of Washington and get on a contender, which I think is very interesting. If not the Braves, I certainly think he's going to be moving this trade deadline, maybe sooner. On the verge, let's go ahead and go through these names. I mentioned Sonny Gray earlier. He's a guy who all of you guys seem to flood the comments with, what about Sonny Gray? What about Sonny Gray? And I completely see why. He's got a 3 ERA, he's a free agent 2027. The Cardinals may do it, but because he's got that extra time there, I think you may see them kind of hesitate. But I think you're certainly going to see Lance Lynn move, whether it's a move that the Braves want to make or not. I think he's going to move. Kyle Gibson, same thing. If these guys are determined to be sellers by the trade deadline, I think Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson are definitely moving. Whether or not that's to Atlanta is yet to be seen. One of these guys I think is coming to Atlanta. I think the Braves are certainly going to make a move for someone, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson. I just think that cookie cutter formula of solid ERA, solid appearances, solid starts, and free agency at the end of the year is a perfect formula for what the Braves need right now. Because again, you don't have the prospects that you need to really land a frontline starter for a long-term contract. And that would, if the Cardinals were to make a trade for Sonny Gray, they would want the house, right? They'd want the house and the car and the jet skis too. They'd want everything. I don't know that the Braves are going to commit that. And that's the interesting thing. It's that balancing act between the two teams. Like, yes, the Braves need a starter, but they don't want to give away Hurston Waldrop, A.J. Smith-Shawver, and Dylan Dodd to do it, right? That's kind of my point there. Beyond that, this gets pretty interesting. There's no one on the A's that I'm circling as a real target because there's no one with a really good ERA that is a free agent soon. Your closest to that would be a J.P. Sears with that 3.96 ERA free agent in 2029, though. But there is a former Atlanta Brave that I wanted to mention, Alex Wood. He's got a 5.26 ERA. He's a free agent at the end of the year. That could be a low-cost supplement situation. I just don't know how much better Alex Wood is than what you currently have, and I don't know that he's the long-term guy that you want to bring in. And what I mean by long-term, I don't mean long-term for years to come. I mean long-term for the end of the season. I just don't know that that's what you want to go with. But you also got to realize he is playing in Oakland. It's pretty dreary over there, so if you bring him to Atlanta, a change of scenery could help him and could make him better. I would also say that since I updated this list last time, Alex Wood has dropped his ERA from north of 7 to now north of 5, so he is getting better as the year progresses. I just don't think he's enough to highlight anyone right now. I don't think the A's have anyone to highlight at the moment. That brings us to the Astros, and the Astros are pretty interesting. The Astros, 5.5 games back. Dana Brown, formerly the head of scouting for the Braves, now the GM for the Astros, has already said that they are not going to sell. No matter what, they're not going to sell. I find that hard to believe in the sense of no matter what. I think there is certainly an avenue for the Astros to sell, right? If things continue to go the way they've gone with injuries and everything else, I think there is an avenue. Now, will other teams? I don't think so, but I definitely think you'll see a couple of pieces fall off the board here. The Astros have a lot of talent, but the one guy that I'm circling would be Justin Verlander, who is a free agent at the end of the year. He's got a 3.38 ERA. Verlander wants one thing, and that's another ring. And if he hasn't said that, he should, because why else is he playing, right? That guy for sure wants another ring. Why not do it with Atlanta? Why not be a part of it? And he'd be a solid fourth guy, much less fifth guy, that I think you could get you could get a good deal with for multiple reasons. I think you have enough to land it. I think as a head of scouting, Dana Brown, the former head of scouting for the Braves, he's well aware of what the Braves have to offer in the minors, and I think you could attract him with someone like a Hurston Waldrop, who can't help you now but could help you in the future. And beyond that, if that's not to happen, it's not to happen, but I certainly think there is at least a conversation that could be had there. The other interesting point to that would be that, if you remember, the Mets traded away Justin Verlander a couple of years ago to the Astros. So technically speaking, Verlander would be getting paid to play for the Braves by the New York Mets. Just something to think about there. Pretty interesting. Moving on to the Giants. No one of real interest here. And what I mean by that is there is no one that fits both categories, right? You have Jordan Hicks, who pitches pretty well, but he's not a free agent until 2028. The Giants, of course, sitting 9 games back. Blake Snell, who is the name everyone's going to turn to me and say, you don't want Blake Snell? I would love to have Blake Snell, but a healthy Blake Snell. He's been hurt. We haven't seen a ton of him. You see where his ERA sits right now. That doesn't mean anything. There's an asterisk next to his name for a reason. He is hurt. So I don't know if he's a guy that the Braves really want to count on for the rest of their season. So just keep that in mind. Moving on to the Blue Jays, this guy really intrigues me. You say Kikuchi. Kikuchi has a 2.60 ERA. He's a free agent at the end of the year. Again, he's in that category of Eric Fetty, Cal Quantrill, Austin Gomber, Tyler Anderson, and Trevor Williams. If they become a seller, he's a guy that I would love the Braves to get. I think he's really good. I think he could really help the Braves for the remainder of the year. A lot of you guys are going to look at Jose Barrios. We've talked about him in years past. Could he come to the Braves? He, of course, signed a long-term deal with Toronto, not a free agent until 2029. I don't see them walking away from that because they're not having a bad enough season for them to walk away from whatever plan there is. There's just not. And Jose Barrios is certainly a part of that plan. But look, I mean, guys, this is just one representation of the way this trade deadline can go. And it's going to fluctuate, right? I said that last time. This is about how I would have drawn it up, but I would have never seen the Astros being in this situation. I don't know that I would have seen the Blue Jays being in this situation. I certainly would have seen the White Sox and the Marlins, the Rockies and the Angels, and even the Nationals. Those are kind of the first ones I would have thought to have fallen. I would have thought the A's would have been kind of out of it by now. But as it stands, this is really where we are. And I think that more teams are going to find themselves into that seller category. And because of that, this may be one of the wildest trade deadlines we've seen in quite a while. Because usually it's very determined on, is this a seller's market? And this year, I believe it is a seller's market because you already have so many teams that have gotten off to just dreadful starts. Of course, the White Sox and the Marlins, but the Astros, who no one, I don't care, the biggest Astros nut you know, saw that coming. No one did. But injuries happen and things happen. So really what I'm telling you is the way this goes is very determinant on how many sellers you have. So on the verge, if they become sellers, things get very interesting. I'm going to narrow this down even further. These are the names that I've highlighted. This is, a graphic you can take with you if you want. But this is what I see with the market as it is. Now, you can look at, whoever your favorite is. Maybe it's a Yusei Kikuchi right here. Maybe it's Sonny Gray here at the bottom. I've ranked this in the best way I can. I value the free agency years over the ERA, right? Because an ERA can fluctuate like that. It can change in a couple of starts. That doesn't bother me as much. Like Trevor Williams, you've had a great year at 194, but 260 is pretty good too, and I can live with it, especially with the Braves offense typically. The other thing I want you to take a look at, this games back category, that's going to mean teams are more desperate, right? So if they're sitting at 13 games back, they may be a little bit more desperate than a 5.5 game back, right? So it's just something, this is kind of the way I think about things, the way I break things down, and the way I try to narrow it down before I present a theory to you, right? The first one I presented this year was Eric Fetty. If you have not seen that video, I suggest you go watch it. But really, anybody I present to you is going to follow this same way of thinking, right? So if I presented to you Tyler Anderson, it's because he's a free agent 2026. The Braves wouldn't have to commit a lot to him. They wouldn't have to trade a lot for him if the Angels are indeed a seller. Plus, you got to think with Ron Washington there, it's going to be an open door. But again, there's a lot to think about. There's a lot of different avenues this could go. And look, I'm excited about the trade deadline as anyone, because why wouldn't you be? The trade deadline is always a lot of excitement. It always brings in a lot of views to the channel. And it's one of the things that could flip a season on its head, right? Whether a team is determined to be a seller or a buyer basically means, are they going to try to contend for a World Series or not? And the trade deadline is really when we find out. It's really where, the rubber meets the road in a lot of ways. So I'm excited about the trade deadline. I know you're excited about the trade deadline. That is coming up in late July. We got a ways to go before we get there. And look, the more teams that fall out, the better the options get for a starting, pitcher. The better the options get for bullpen if needed. Who knows with injuries? You may need someone down the road at a certain position. You may need a bench bat, whatever the case may be. Either way, the more teams that are sellers, the more options you're going to have in any of those categories. And I'm excited to see the way this plays out. That's one of the things I always kind of turn to is, well, when's the trade deadline, right? No matter, let's say the Braves, remain in second place. Whatever. When we get to the trade deadline, I want to see what we do, because if we're in second place, I almost prefer it. And the reason I say that, I don't want the Braves to be in second place. But I think we're going to be more aggressive at the deadline if we're 3 games back of first place than we would be if we were 5 games ahead in first place, if that makes sense. That all said, I want to know what you think. When we get back, we have one more segment, then we're going to get to what you guys want to talk about, and I can't wait for it. So when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about Ron Washington and the Los Angeles Angels. That on the other side of the break.
Now at Glynn Smith GMC in Opelika, own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $12,500 off. Roomy and comfortable, the compact SUV GMC Terrain is up to $7,750 off. And GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7 are now discounted up to $7,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall at Glynn Smith GMC in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Make your way to Glynn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox, discounted up to $6,500 off. Chevy's full-size pickup truck, the powerful Chevy Silverado, is up to $12,000 off. And big Chevy Silverado 2500 HDs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall. Make your way to Glynn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Again, a big thank you to our friends at Glynn Smith Chevrolet GMC. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, you might as well go give them a look and tell them I sent you. They may, cut you a deal. We'll see. Let's go ahead and talk about this. This has kind of hit the news today, very unexpectedly for me. I did not watch this game live. I did not see this game live. I am purely reacting to it today, as a lot of you probably are too. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there was a situation in the Los Angeles Angels game, I guess last night, where Luis Guillorme was up to bat. I believe the Angels were down by a run. He had a chance to knock in a run, bases loaded. at least a man on third. He was instructed to bunt with 2 strikes, and he did not get the bunt down. It was a bad pitch, whatever you want to call it. He did not get the bunt down, okay? That's what you need to know. The pitcher was not exactly locating well. You could argue he probably could have drawn a walk. He could have got a base hit. There's a lot of ways it could have gone. However, the way it went down was the Angels lost and brought their record to 16-28. Now 8 games back of first place. Ron Washington, of course, former Atlanta Braves third base coach, former manager for the Texas Rangers who went to the World Series, and now once again a manager for the Angels, was asked about this in postgame, and his response drew a lot of criticism, okay? I'm not jumping on the bandwagon of that. I'm not going to be a guy I'm not going to do it. I'm not a manager in the big leagues. I don't know what it takes, and neither do a lot of other people. Now, that said, you could say that Ron Washington probably should have bit the bullet, shouldn't have said what he said, but I think we also know that Ron Washington is never one to pull his punches. And did Luis Guillorme deserve the comment that was said? I don't know. If you don't know what the comment is, allow me to tell you. Basically, he said that Guillorme did not do his job. Ron Washington said, I didn't do anything wrong. He did not do his job. And that's pretty much direct quote, if I'm not mistaken. But, it's unfortunate. You never want to air out dirty laundry, and I don't think this is a real beef between Guillorme and Wash by any stretch. I just think it's probably frustration within the organization boiling over for Wash. You got to think, right? Ron Washington is used to excellence. He's used to the Braves way. He's used to winning, frankly, and it's probably not easy to go from that to the Angels, who, historically speaking, have wasted a ton of talent. Mike Trout, namely, Shohei Ohtani. They've wasted a lot of talent. Albert Pujols, you could even argue. And you go from an organization who is able to get the max out of a talent. Jesse Chavez is a perfect example of that. Zach Short is another one right now. You go from that to an organization who is the complete opposite. And to me, exemplifies a lot of stupidity in baseball. And they're not the worst. I would say Oakland is by far the worst at the moment. But the Angels are certainly not at the top of the list when it comes to representing what a well-oiled machine in baseball is. And I think Ron Washington probably conflicts with that quite a bit. Now, again, I think this Luis Guillorme thing is a microcosm of what the whole situation is. Luis Guillorme is a brand new player for the Los Angeles Angels, and the reason we know that is because he came from the Braves. He was great for the Braves, by the way, played great defense, was able to get on base quite a bit, and he found himself in a trade, and that is what it is. Now he's with the Angels. And again, do I like the way this went down? Absolutely not. Do I think Ron Washington will probably regret it in a week? I do. But the other thing is, no one envied Ron Washington getting that Los Angeles job. And what I mean by that, we were all happy for him because he deserves it. And I can tell you firsthand, I don't see how anyone could have a conversation with Ron Washington, and I have had a few, and not hire him. I don't see how anyone could bring him in a job interview and hear what he has to say about the game of baseball and not hire him. I thought it was ridiculous for years. The Padres interviewed him, multiple teams interviewed him and never hired him. The Angels finally gave him that shot. That all said, no one envied the situation he was walking into. I've spoken about Anthony Rendon on here a few times. I think Anthony Rendon is a good ball player. I think he could be a great ball player. And I think Ron Washington probably feels the same way. And when you're walking into a locker room that doesn't exactly represent what you want as a team, you do have to make changes. Does anyone remember when Deion Sanders walked into the locker room at Colorado and basically told him, I got folks coming, so y'all need to find another place to go? It drew criticism from a lot of people. And again, I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do. I'm saying this is the way these guys are going about it, Deion Sanders and Ron Washington. Deion Sanders was then later praised after his team won a couple of games. Of course, it didn't end the season the way he wanted to, for sure. But you get my point. Managing is a thankless job, because if you win, okay, you were supposed to win. If you lose, your job is on the line. If you say something you're not supposed to do, your job is on the line, right? It's a very delicate situation always. And is everyone cut out for it? Probably not. Is Ron Washington cut out for it? People are going to say yes and no. I would venture to say that yes, he is. I think that at this point, we can all admit that sure, should he have said it? No. Will he regret it? Knowing Ron Washington, probably not. But I think he would say that he probably shouldn't have said it the way he said it and in public. But, again, do I disagree with him? In that situation, I'd have to say I do. But I don't know that Ron Washington has really looked at the evidence. I don't know that if he saw everything that we got to see with replay and the heat map of pitches and all that. I don't know that he got to see all that. So am I the judge? No. That all said, it's an unfortunate situation that Ron Washington finds himself in Los Angeles. It's an unfortunate situation that Luis Guillorme finds himself in Los Angeles. Hopefully, and I genuinely hope this, I hope Ron Washington is the guy to turn it around in Anaheim. If there is a guy to turn around a team, it is Ron Washington. I think we're all aware of that. But it's a very delicate situation. Was it handled incorrectly? Probably, and I would attest to that. But again, I think Ron Washington would tell you, sure, but I need this team to wake up. And I need them to get a grip as to what we're doing and what we're trying to do here in Anaheim. And so far, with a 16-28 record, 8 games back, that is not happening. And, look, you've had injuries. You've had Mike Trout hurt. You've had, Anthony Rendon, God knows. Anthony Rendon, anytime he has a microphone in front of him, has a blunder, right? Where he says something to make baseball fans hate him. So I'm telling you this. Ron Washington has to do something to turn things around. Whether that's the right way, whether you step on toes, whatever the case may be, something has to change. And if he's got to be the guy to enforce that change, if he's got to be the bad guy, I don't blame him. Now, when we get back, we're opening up the comments to you, so make sure you get them in. Of course, super chats do get priority, so if you haven't already, they do help the channel. We really would appreciate it. And of course, if you have not already, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can be updated every time we go live. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Now at GLYNN Smith GMC in Opelika, own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $12,500 off. Roomy and comfortable, the compact SUV GMC Terrain is up to $7,750 off. And GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7 are now discounted up to $7,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall at GLYNN Smith GMC in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Make your way to GLYNN Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox. Discounted up to $6,500 off. Chevy's full-size pickup truck, the powerful Chevy Silverado, is up to $12,000 off. And big Chevy Silverado 2500 HDs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Plus, enjoy no payments until fall. Make your way to GLYNN Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Welcome back, everybody. Again, thank you for being here tonight. We're going to wrap it up soon, but we are going to go through your comments, so make sure to get them in. And again, really do appreciate you all being here tonight. And these streams don't happen without you, so keep that in mind. Please continue to support the channel. We certainly do appreciate it. And of course, if you would, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you got a friend that likes the Braves, you might as well go ahead and tell them about us. We certainly would appreciate that. And again, anytime we are on here, we would love you to be a part of it. We love reading these comments. I certainly enjoy the conversation because otherwise it's just a one-way conversation. I love reading the comments and you guys being a part of this as well. Yasuke Knight tunes in, says, hey guys, go Braves. Lady Braves 1993 says, go Braves. HR, I need to talk to you, by the way. HR says, human resources. Braves need a bat too. Here's the thing, right? I'm glad you said it because I wanted to talk about this. I think there's this large contingent of people who think that the Braves need a bat. I'm not saying I disagree with you, but I want you to realize if we get a bat, someone else has to go. All right? So before you say that, I want you to think about the lineup and or even the bench and think about where does that person come from, right? Because I mean, right, your outfield's pretty much set. You have Acuña, you have Michael Harris. They're not going anywhere. You have Kelenic and Duvall already. One of those is on the bench any given day. In the infield, you have, of course, Austin Riley, Zach Short now, Orlando Arcia, Ozzy Albies, Matt Olson. I don't think any of those guys are going anywhere. Zach Short could, but the way he's playing right now, not soon. Catching, you already have, Travis d'Arnaud and Chadwick Tromp in right now, and of course Sean Murphy. So for me, I just question where does the bat come from? And it's not so much that I disagree that the offense is a problem. I do think it's a problem, but I don't think it's a problem that needs to be handled in a trade or in a signing. I think it needs to be handled by practice or by routine, whatever the case needs to be. Something's got to change in the culture of the team and in the approach, maybe, right? Like you're certainly not going to get rid of your DH right now, Marcelo Ozuna, who's the best one in the game, right? So I'm not disagreeing that the offense is a problem. I just think the only problem we really have that we can deal with organizationally with a trade or with a signing is pitching, right? Because you can certainly adjust your bullpen if needed. I think Ken Giles is a guy who could come up from AAA. His stats don't really show a reason to bring him up yet, but we've already seen Ray Kerr come in and pitch well. We've seen Jackson Stevens come up. We've seen Tyler Matzik have to go. There's been some changes. So I think pitching is the one where you're really going to see shifting. I don't think you're going to see much to do in the lineup and in your everyday position players. You may see some shifting in the bench, but you're not going to get rid of Duvall. And I had a good question presented to me earlier, and this is a very good rebuttal to what you're saying. When it comes down to the last at-bat of the year, right, if you remember last year, if you remember who had the last at-bat last year, it was Vaughn Grissom, all right? I'm not knocking Vaughn Grissom when I say this, but ask yourself, who do you want to have the last at-bat of the year? Vaughn Grissom or Adam Duvall? I'll take Adam Duvall. So that, to me, tells me that the team is in a better place. It's in a good place. When Adam Duvall's coming off the bench, even when Jared Kelenic's coming off the bench, I have no problem with it. I don't think there is an issue right now offensively. I think, at least again, organizationally, I think our offensive problem is not a name in the lineup problem. It is a, why are the guys in the lineup not performing? And that would be what I'd say to you. As much as you could say we need a bat, I think it's more along the lines of we need our bats to do well. And that's the way I go about it. Mark Narmore says, good evening, Tyler. I say bring up a young arm now and find out how bad we need someone come August. It's really late July, but in terms of a young arm, you have a few. I mentioned some earlier, but you already have one that you're kind of testing out in Bryce Elder. Bryce Elder, certainly not a proven commodity yet, at least not this season. He's had his spurts of greatness, but he's just not been there so far this year. He's had the one good start in Miami and the one bad start against LA. It's tough to say, right? But against a playoff contender, he didn't look well. Against Miami, he looked great. So it's tough to say. I'm curious to see how he does against the Padres. If he bounces back and pitches well, I'm going to shut up about it. But, at least for the time being, because I need to see progression, and that would show me progression. That said, you do have A.J. Smith-Shawver in the waiting. You have Darius Vines in the waiting. You have Dylan Dodd in the waiting. You have Alan Winans in the waiting. You have a lot of internal options that the Braves would probably like to showcase a little bit, either potentially to trade or really just to see what they have. And I agree with you there. That said, I think game 2 against the Padres is going to tell us a lot. And of course, we'll have to watch it play out. Let's see. Brandon Edwards says, I was at that game. It was a ton of fun. I'm assuming that was game 2 against the Cubs. That was the one that seems like it would be a lot of fun. Jay Hobby says, I would expect the Braves to try and rotate AAA arms to get some regular starters an extra day or two of rest with 17 straight games. That's not a bad idea at all. I think you could see that, a spot start here and there, maybe an A.J. Smith-Shawver. I would say you got to be careful with options and that kind of thing. I don't know where they all sit on that, but it's just something to think about. I think the way things are going right now, the internal options are just, to me, I think you can improve it at the deadline. And that's not what a lot of people want to hear, but I'm giving you the honest truth here. No matter who you bring up in that fifth starter spot, they're not going to be experienced. They're not going to have playoff experience. If they do, it's limited. I think you need to get a guy who's a veteran and a guy who can handle himself in a big-time situation, right? That's why we went out and got Chris Sale, right? That's why we have guys like Max Fried and Charlie Morton, because they have that experience. Now, do you need that in your fifth starter? No, but you do need to have someone who can get you to the deep waters of the regular season, right? And if you do make a deep playoff run, if you do start in the wild card round, you're going to need a guy who can get you through that. And Ronaldo Lopez has not shown me anything to think that he couldn't do that. I'm questioning Bryce Elder. And I don't like questioning Bryce Elder, but I do question Bryce Elder. I have a lot of concern when it comes to Bryce Elder. Again, he could prove me wrong, and I'd love for him to do that. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm saying I have not seen it up until this point. And I would love to see it come game 2 against the Padres. Jake Hobby says, if we keep getting great outings out of Hurston Waldrop and Spencer Swellenbach, or back, however you want to say it. Hurston Waldrop has caught a lot of attention, rightfully so, down in AA Mississippi. He's been a guy who's had a lot of good outings. He's a guy who I think could be called up, but typically with pitchers, they like to see him in AAA. But that said, I didn't think Michael Harris was coming up either, and all of a sudden he was up and he was staying. So it's tough to say. I think it would be tough to make that transition and expect him to be better than Bryce Elder. I just think that would be a tough thing to ask out of a guy that young. But that said, we've seen it before, so I could be wrong. HR says, I think we will trade for Sonny Gray. And, of course, he or she, I don't know, is referring to, is referring to the spreadsheet I was showing earlier about all the trade possibilities. Again, thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. And thank you for, commenting. Let me adjust this real quick if I can. So basically, this is what we're talking about. This is the trade scenarios I presented earlier. And, I think this is certainly a possibility. I think Sonny Gray is a possibility. However, I would present to you the one caveat that because he's not a free agent until 2027, you'd probably have to give the Cardinals quite a bit. The other thing is the Cardinals aren't necessarily out of it yet, I don't think. At least not out of it enough for them to be convinced they're out of it. And that's what I mean by out of it. It may be out of it in our opinion. We could probably use common sense and say, okay, they're 8 games back. Let's just assume this is going to be the case. There is a lot of time, and if they do have a great stretch, then things could change. But given what we know, I agree with you that the Cardinals are probably going to be a seller. That said, they held on to Sonny Gray last year, I believe. So it's not a guarantee, and he's a free agent until 2027. So that's my one thing. I would love to get Sonny Gray. I think he'd be a great veteran to add to this. I think he fits well. But again, it's also, got to be determined by, will the Cardinals sell him as much as it is do the Braves want him? I think the Braves would take Sonny Gray in a heartbeat. I think the Braves would take Eric Fetty. I think they would take Trevor Williams. I think they would take Tyler Anderson. Yusei Kikuchi, Verlander for sure. But I think it's going to be determined on what team is going to take what the Braves have to offer. And when you think about what do the Braves have to offer, you have a wealth of solid starting pitching prospects that are likely not going to see the starting rotation for the Braves for some time, depending on how things shake out at the end of this year. Does Charlie Morton walk away? Does Max Fried sign to another team, that kind of thing. But really, they have a better chance starting on another team. And the guys I'm talking about, of course, Darius Vines, Dylan Dodd, A.J. Smith-Shawver, Allen Winans, anybody like that. The Braves, I think, of course, you're going to have hopefully Spencer Strider back next year. You're going to have Chris Sale, and Ronaldo Lopez maybe, but you're going to have to kind of navigate your starting rotation once again. So this may be a chance for the Braves to go ahead and address the starting rotation not only this year but next year. So that kind of plays into the idea of Sonny Gray. Do they give up Darius Vines and Dylan Dodd and some other prospect for a Sonny Gray? Possibly. I don't know. Possibly. I certainly don't think that they are buying into the idea that Bryce Elder is going to carry them to the promised land. I think they've come to realize that. That said, Sonny Gray does kind of fit that narrative, but so does Eric Fetty for probably costs a lot less because you could get him. The White Sox are worse than the Cardinals. They're probably already out of it. He's had a good ERA this year, better than Sonny Gray, and he'd have another year, and you wouldn't have to commit 2 or 3 years to him, right, or 2.5 years. So it's just something to think about. I like Sonny Gray. I wouldn't oppose it at all. I just think in the likelihood, it's kind of tough because he's not a free agent for a long time. But again, the way the Braves rotation is shaking out at the moment, you could argue that, well, they could use the starting pitcher next year too, depending on the way this shakes out. So it's tough to say. I like the Sonny Gray idea. I actually really like the Sonny Gray idea. And the more I think about it, the more I like it. You're seeing me live right now kind of put 3 and 3 together. I like Sonny Gray because of the years attached now, because, again, you don't know if Max Fried's going to be back next year. You don't know if Charlie Morton's going to be back next year. And you have a lot of questions surrounding the back end of the rotation, too. So I like the Sonny Gray idea. The more I think about it, I may do a video on that. I don't know. You may have convinced me. In that one little comment saying I think it will be Sonny Gray, you made me think about it more than I've already thought about it. That all said, it all goes away if the Cardinals start doing well, right, before July. So it's tough. It's really tough to say yes or no. I like it. I'm all for it. But it's going to be determined, again, by whether or not the Cardinals are worth anything come July 30th. I saw Matt ask the question. Matthew, I saw you ask this question. Do I think the Braves would consider talking about Mason Miller? Do I think that the Braves would consider trading for closer Mason Miller? I went ahead and pulled this up while we were in break because I knew I wanted to talk about it. And I'm going to talk about it now because Mason Miller is pretty interesting. 0.98 ERA, sub-1 ERA. He's talented. He's talented. He's with the A's. Let me look at some deeper stats here. So far, he's a young guy. Last year he had a 3.78 ERA. You see right here. He started 6 games though, so he's converted to a reliever. He's had 14 appearances, 8 saves. Yeah, for the A's, that's pretty good. Do I think they'd be willing to talk about it? Sure. And again, I don't know what his. I don't know where he sits on the whole, how do I put this? I don't know where he sits in talent-wise. I haven't seen very much of him at all, if any. But he's not a free agent until 2030, so the Braves would probably have to hand over quite a bit. And I don't know that they would do that because they have other things to address. If the bullpen was the major concern, I could see that more so. But because he's so young, because he's so cheap, the reason the A's are good year after year when they probably shouldn't be is because they do stuff like this. They go from having a guy who's really good, one guy who's really good, locked up for years and years and years. They've raised him through the minors, and then they get rid of him, right, Matt Olson, and they bring in a Shea Langoliers, and they bring in guys who can compete right now who are young and cheap, and then they sell them off, right? That's the way the A's, that's Moneyball in a sense. They've been able to maximize what they have for years and years and years. So in terms of Mason Miller, do I like it? I like it a lot. Would I love it if the Braves did it? Yes. Is he a little too young to be making a deal like this? Sure. But I do like it. I don't think it happens because I don't think the Braves are going to necessarily go for it, I think they'd probably be asking for too much for a commodity that's not proven, right? So I don't hate it, but I don't think I'm 100% for it either. Ron says, I hope these bats get going quick. San Diego worries me because they always play the Braves tough. I live in San Diego and I always rock my Braves hat, so they better take the series. Well, thank you for watching all the way in San Diego. Really do appreciate that. Yeah, you're right. The San Diego Padres always seem to play the Braves really well. I've been to a couple games against the Padres and seen it firsthand, and it always stinks. No, I think game one, I feel pretty confident about with Max Fried on the mound. He's looked great lately. Game two is going to be, the big question mark. Can Bryce Elder, can he do it or not? We'll see. I'm excited for that in a way. Even if game two doesn't go well, I'm giving you the inside baseball here. Even if game two doesn't go well, I'm excited because I'm excited to see what the Braves do about it. Do they leave Bryce Elder in the rotation? Do they maneuver him out? I'm excited about that in a way. But I'm a nerd, right? So I enjoy the organizational questions, the constant action in the organization. Okay, Bryce Elder, we're moving past you. I enjoy that kind of thing because, okay, where do we go from here, right? I enjoy theorizing about the deadline. I enjoy doing this, talking to you and thinking about all the different ways this could go. So, I mean, there's a lot of that, but I view it as a situation where this is a great testing ground. If you remember a few weeks ago when we were talking about the upcoming stretch, now past stretch, really tough stretch against the Guardians, the Mariners, and the Dodgers, I went ahead and told you this is going to be one of the toughest stretches of the year for the Braves, right? First place after first place after first place opponent. It's never an easy stretch. And it wasn't. The Braves lost in that stretch, I believe, 6-5. So I was correct on that. And then what I told you was this is going to be a chance for us to see where the Braves stack up, right? Sink or swim, right? We're going to see it. And what we saw was we competed well against the Guardians. I still think we competed well against the Mariners. It just didn't go our way and won at one pitch and one at bat. The Dodgers, though, beat us to shreds, right? And that is what it is. But because of that, we kind of know what we have in Bryce Elder. So it's tough, right? It's tough to watch this go on and watch it play out, but you have to enjoy the process. The reason baseball is 162 is because the marathon, the adjustments, the trade deadline, all of that plays into it. And it's one of my favorite parts about the game. That's the again, the baseball nerd in me, but I enjoy that. I'm going to skip down a little bit. Let's see. Matthew says, Tyler, to shake things up, should Ron Washington release Anthony Rendon? I think he sets a bad example for the players as the highest paid infielder on the team, and we all know Wash loves infield. How do I put this? Wash would tell you no, okay? I would tell you yes. Wash would tell you no. Wash would tell you, I want to fix him. I want to make him be what he used to be. Make him be the best he can be. That's the speech Ron Washington's going to give you, and that's probably the correct speech. I would tell you, yeah, get the cancer out of the clubhouse, right? I think we all would agree with that. And look, I don't know how Anthony Rendon is as a teammate. I have no clue. I've never been his teammate. However, I've seen what he does publicly, and I don't like it. But, it's not my team, so it's not really for me to say. If he was on the Atlanta Braves, I'd want him gone, but it's a lot easier to walk away from a contract that's not what he's making. And unfortunately, he's making it. The Angels previously made a terrible decision in my book to sign someone like him long-term for that much money. And, some contracts are good, some contracts are bad. Steven Strasburg's was bad. Anthony Rendon's was bad. Ronald Acuña so far has been pretty good. So it's tough, right? I mean, you have to weigh the two sides. Vision says, Tyler, I've been talking to other fans and hearing their opinion. Oh, so you're cheating on us. I'm just kidding. Wanted to get your take on Acuña. Do you think he's been lackadaisical, overly cautious to avoid injury, or just a typical rough spot? I think it's kind of a mixture of all of that. I don't think it's lackadaisical, though. I think it's more of the overly cautiousness and just the rough stretch combined. When you're overly cautious, you tend to be in a rough stretch, so I don't know for sure, but what I do know is that I don't think Acuña would follow an MVP season by being lackadaisical. I don't think we have that issue in Atlanta. And I think if we did have that issue, Brian Snicker would be the first one to correct it. So, do we really know? No, but I mean, only time will tell, right? Let's see. Corey Carter, I still say the only things I am concerned right now are the left side of the bullpen and closer. I'm definitely concerned about left side of the bullpen, but I'm more concerned about starting rotation. Corey, I get you on the left side of the bullpen. And I don't disagree, but I think that's an easier thing to navigate than starter, right? That's why I've kind of been harping on starter, is because I know how hard it is to land one no matter what time of the year it is. And it's going to be tough to nail. It's going to be tough to land one come the deadline. It just is. So I'm more or less kind of circumventing the bullpen. The bullpen we can find, guys. There's a bullpen arm on every team. Starters are harder to come by. And yes, I just showed you this list with, a ton of starters, and that's all fine and dandy. But all in all, it's not everything is not perfect in this list, right? Because half of these guys aren't going to be available because other teams are going to be looking at them. These are just possible names. And as much as I'd love to say that this is what it's going to be, it's going to change. It's going to change radically. So I think starters are going to be harder to come by. I think there's something that the Braves need. And think about this also, if this may help you understand why I'm so persistent on this. If Ronaldo Lopez went down right now, you heard it. If he went down right now, where would the Braves go? What would they do? Right? Of course, everybody, the team would move on. They'd find someone. But that's my point. I mean, after the deadline, do you really want to be in a position where Chris Sale goes down? Max Fried goes down? My point, right? That's what I'm saying. I just don't know that you want to be in that situation. And I think the Braves have got to find some depth in their starting rotation, and, sooner rather than later. Miguel says, let me see. Tyler, last year we had Harris as our number 9 hitter. Now we have Kelenic, who doesn't look well as a hitter. His defense is good. However, I don't trust him as a hitter. Have you seen him lately? He's been hitting pretty good. I'm going to pull up his stats because unless I'm missing something. The eye test is telling me he's been a lot better at the plate. Is he perfect? No. But the Braves have also not really had a ton of time to get their mark on him. Did I misspell it? I don't think I misspelled his name. But they had... Oh, okay, I forgot an R. They haven't had time to get their mark on him, and that's really going to be the telltale sign. And if they can't get their mark on him, then, they'll move on. But I think Kelenic's been fine. He's got a 260 average, 2 homers. He's been fine. Has he been great? No, he had a couple of rough stretches. He wasn't good in spring training. But he's been a guy who's been solid. And I'll tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of when we got Orlando Arcia. Because Orlando Arcia at one time was supposed to be this great shortstop for the Brewers. He was going to turn, he was a prospect type that was going to turn into a really good shortstop. Never really amounted to the expectation in Milwaukee. And we get him as a backup, and you're like, okay, years go on, and Dansby Swanson leaves, and we think, okay, well, Vaughn Grissom's surely going to be the guy to take over the role, and Orlando Arcia is going to be the guy to kind of move on, right? No. And then all of a sudden, Orlando Arcia is an all-star. Jared Kelenic gives me that same vibe. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying that's what I think the Braves are looking at him like. I think they look at him as an opportunity to have something that doesn't cost a ton. He's a free agent in 2029. He's not arbitration eligible until the end of this year. He's not making that much. They're not paying him that much. And you got him. Look, this is a guy who was a first overall pick, or not first overall, but first round pick a couple of years ago. I mean, he's not, drafted by the New York Mets. How great would it be if he became an all-star and the Mets passed on him? So, look, I as time goes on, I think we're going to see that Jared Kelenic is here to stay and is going to be a good part of this team. Miguel, Tyler, do you see how Snitker is managing? It seems like spring training, no enthusiasm in the team. Well, you can't blame that solely on Snit, and I wouldn't say the enthusiasm is gone either. Snit's been pretty good over his tenure. I wouldn't say that he is the problem at all. I mean, you can only put your lineup out there and hope they perform to some degree. You can question bullpen decisions, you can question that kind of thing, but culture of the team, I'm not going to get on that yet. It's too early. Let's see. Yeah, Kellenick has a higher batting average than Michael Harris right now. I don't think he's a bad hitter at all. He's a good upgrade from Rosario. He's everything that we were hoping Rosario was going to be when he signed that contract. Rosario had a better final year with Atlanta than he did second year with Atlanta. That first year of the 2-year contract, that year was kind of bad due to the eyesight issues, whatever you want to call it. But I definitely think he's been an upgrade, and we'll see how it is. I do like what Bravos 1 says, and that's I don't want to see AJ Minter in the 9th inning. I agree with you there. He just something about it has not registered with him. It's just not. It's not his inning. It's just not his time. And you're kind of having to put him out there because you're limited elsewhere. The bullpen is certainly not perfect, but again, I think you're going to address starting pitching. You're going to address bullpen at the deadline, and I look forward to that. We'll do more videos as time goes on the trade deadline because it is coming sooner rather than later, late July. We're going to talk about the bullpen. It is a concern. We're going to continue to talk about the starting rotation because that is a big deal as well. But for now, we're going to wrap it up. The last comment I'm reading tonight, Corey Carter. Will people be disappointed if Ronald Acuña finishes the season with a .290 batting average, 30 homers, I can't see that last number, 80 stolen bases, and 40 stolen bases? If the answer is yes, that's unrealistic. I agree with you. 290 batting average, 30 homers, I can't, 30 homers, 80, I don't know what it says. But anyway, I agree with you. The expectation on Acuña following the MVP season is unrealistic. To expect him to go 30-60 again is a little unrealistic. The expectation for him to, hit 40 homers, 50 homers is unrealistic. Now, again, I asked Acuña back in spring training, hey, what's your biggest goal this year? And I assumed, mistakenly, that he would say 50-80, that he would say 40-70 times 2, that he'd give me a number. I assumed that would be the case. What he told me was his biggest goal was to stay healthy. And, I was asked earlier by Vision Music Works if I thought, thank you, Corey, 80 RBIs. I was asked earlier by Vision if I thought that Ronald Acuña was being overly cautious, if I thought he was being lackadaisical, whatever the case may be. I think overly cautious is more along the lines of it, and because he wants to stay healthy. When he's healthy, he can do no wrong. I'd also like to see him playing with his, with his hair on fire like we have before, but right now that's just not the case. He's got 3 homers through, what is it, like 60 games, 50, like 40 games maybe? I don't even know. He's got 3 homers through X amount of games, 14 stolen bases. Let's see if we can find it. All right, so through 39 games, he's got 3 homers, so we'll call that 40. So he's projected to have 12 homers, and he's projected to have around 60 stolen bases, a little less than 60 stolen bases. That's just basic quick math. But that said, ask yourself, do you think Ronald Acuña is going to have 12 homers at the end of the year? Ask yourself that. Do you think he's going to have 60 stolen bases? Yeah, sure. But do you really believe that Ronald Acuña is going to have 12 homers? By the way, the lowest homers he's ever hit is 14, and that was in 2020 when he only played, 46 games? The second lowest he's hit was 15. That was, of course, in 22 when he came back off an injury. And then he responded to that year by hitting, 41 last year. He also hit 41 back in 2019. So I think look, if he hits 30, you should be happy with it. That's kind of my take on it. So, Corey, to your point, are the expectations very high? Yes. Should they be? Sure. Should they be this high? No. That would be my take. Again, guys, thank you for being here tonight. Really do appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. And, of course, thank you for hitting the bell for notifications so that you'll know next time we go live. If you would do us a favor, go check out our friends at GLYNN Smith Chevrolet that are nice enough to help us put this on, and they are our presenting sponsor. Go check them out. And if you would also do us a favor, go follow me on social media, Twitter and Instagram. You see my handle down there, at Tyler Redmond TV. You can follow me there. I post regularly, but make sure, if you don't do anything else, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And if you would, like the video on the way out. That's going to wrap it up here, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.